It was a quiet evening when it happened. The kind of night where everything seemed still and the world was a little too calm. But what happened next, no one could have predicted. In the middle of the forest, a lone bear cub stumbled out from the dense trees, its fur matted and dirty. It was too weak to be out there on its own, too small to face the wild dangers of the forest. But it wasn't just the cub that caught the man's attention, it was what came next. The little bear cub did something strange. It started to follow him. Not out of fear, not out of curiosity, but with a strange sense of trust. It followed him right up to his doorstep. The man paused, staring at the small animal with wide eyes. What could possibly drive this wild creature to do this? And what would he do next? In that moment, the man had no idea that his life was about to change forever. Mark knew the dangers of the wild better than most. He had spent years living in the mountains, hunting, fishing, and learning from the wilderness. But this was different. He couldn't just leave the cub out there alone. Carefully, he stepped toward the small bear. It didn't flinch. It simply continued to follow him, its tiny feet dragging across the cold ground. Mark crouched down and examined the cub closely. It had a scratch on its leg, and its fur was too dirty for its age. The cub was starving, its ribs visibly showing beneath its matted fur. Mark's heart softened. This wasn't just some wild animal looking for food, it was a lost soul. Mark knew he couldn't leave it to fend for itself. With a heavy sigh, he decided to bring the cub inside. But that was only the beginning. The next morning, Mark realized that the bear wasn't just a stray, this was a creature that had no place to go. It was scared and disoriented. As Mark looked at the cub curled up in the corner of his cabin, he realized the truth. He wasn't just offering the cub a temporary shelter, he was taking on a responsibility that would change both of their lives forever. He wondered if he had made the right choice. Would the cub be safe here? Could he care for it? How would he handle the growing bond between them? And what if his decision turned out to be a mistake? There was no way to know. All he could do was move forward and hope for the best. Days passed, and Mark's life began to revolve around caring for the cub. He named it Kodiak, a nod to the powerful bear species that roamed the mountains. Kodiak had grown accustomed to Mark's presence, but the wild nature of the cub still showed through. One night, Mark had to go into town for supplies. When he returned, something felt off. The cabin was eerily quiet, and as he entered, he was greeted by a chilling sight. The door to the small pantry had been torn off its hinges. Food had been scattered everywhere. But it wasn't just the mess that shocked Mark, it was the way the cub had reacted. Kodiak was sitting in the corner, shaking with fear, but there was something else in its eyes. It wasn't just the panic of a wild animal, there was a hint of sadness, confusion, and perhaps regret. Mark's heart sank. Had Kodiak turned on him? Was the cub's nature too wild to control? Had Mark made a grave mistake in bringing a bear into his home? But as he knelt beside Kodiak, something unexpected happened. The bear cub crawled into his lap, curling up against his chest, seeking comfort. In that moment, Mark realized that Kodiak wasn't a threat. The cub wasn't turning on him, it was simply scared. Kodiak needed him. And Mark understood now that their bond wasn't one of captivity, it was one of trust, love, and mutual understanding. Mark made a decision. Kodiak wasn't just going to be his responsibility, the cub would be his companion for as long as needed. The man built an outdoor enclosure where the cub could roam freely while staying protected from any outside dangers. He taught Kodiak how to forage, how to climb, and how to survive in the wilderness in the safest way possible. As weeks turned into months, Mark's bond with Kodiak grew stronger. People in the small nearby town would come by to visit, amazed to see a man living so closely with a bear. Mark explained to them how Kodiak was an orphan and that he was simply doing what anyone would do in the situation, helping a lost soul. But soon, it became clear that Kodiak was no longer a wild bear, it had become a member of Mark's family. Kodiak would follow Mark around the cabin, play in the yard, and even help him with chores. The bond between them had deepened beyond what either of them expected. Then, one day, Mark woke up to a noise outside the cabin. When he opened the door, he was met with a surprising sight. A large female bear stood in the yard, watching him. Kodiak, now fully grown, approached the bear cautiously, looking back at Mark for reassurance. Mark's heart skipped a beat. Was this the mother? Was it time for Kodiak to return to the wild? But Kodiak hesitated, then turned to Mark. Without a sound, the bear cub, now a young adult, looked at him and walked back into the safety of the cabin, choosing Mark. The mother bear nodded and disappeared into the woods. Kodiak had made his choice. And so had Mark. They had changed each other's lives forever. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you incredible animal stories that will change the way you see the world. Share this story with your friends and comment below. What do you think about the bond between Mark and Kodiak? Could you ever imagine living with a bear as a companion? Let us know your thoughts.